Welcome everyone, today we have a new Necromancer build for Season 2. Now looking behind me, we're currently trying a Blood Necromancer build with the latest new rings for the Necromancer to be auto-casting Corpse Explosion and also Corpse Tendril. This build is actually extremely powerful and also potent because what I want to show you guys is, if you come over here to the screenshot, we're able to get one of the screenshots for the testing build with over 3400 overpower damage. But unfortunately, after the recording, we actually picked out back into the corpses build for the Necromancer, so you don't get to see the stats over here anymore. So notice the stats have changed because we're back to the Corpse Tendril Necromancer. So this build is very powerful, and before I show you guys the replay for the build, I just want to quickly touch up on some item changes and also adjustment for the build. Now of course, we're using the ring that auto-casts the Corpse Explosion and also Corpse Tendril. We're also using the chests that provide us with additional barrier, damage reduction, and also more damage and also lucky hit chance while having a barrier. Now one of the highlights for the build is that we're currently using the Blood Moon Breaches, which allows us to have a multiplier of 70% increased overpower damage from our character by cursing enemies. Now we're not using minions to curse enemies, but rather we're casting curse with the Decrepify. Finally, we're using the Banished Lord of Talisman to deal more damage with overpower. So coming back to the replays, now that you kinda know the concept of the build, by casting Bone Storm, we also create additional Bone Storm with a Lidless Wall. And also casting Bone Storms will give us additional barrier with 5% of the damage. So overall, the build is actually quite durable, deals tons of damage, and because of the auto casting with Corpse Explosion, you're currently on maximum essence, because you're constantly consuming your corpses with Corpse Explosion and also Corpse Tendril. By consuming corpses, we'll be gaining essence. So the build is very well rounded. Now during this recording, you can see that we're currently clearing the Sepulchre's Cavern with 2 players. And because there are 2 players, the monsters actually have 100% increased HP. Now the build itself is quite straightforward. Because you're auto-casting your spells, all you have to do is by casting your Bone Shield and also dashing into enemies. And I'll touch this further with our explanation with the rotation of the spells. Now because during this test run we actually didn't have a boss for this dungeon, but facing the boss it is very straightforward as well. Most of the time you'll have no problem with dealing with massive amount of enemies, and because you'll be using a lot of your potions to gain an extra shield with the unique chest, you're actually very durable with additional barriers. Now coming over to the builder's guide over here, I'll have the links available to you guys, and there will be some adjustment for higher tier dungeons. Currently with the build, we're going with more damage with the Blood Moon Pants, but you can go with more defensive and also to adjust this a little bit for higher tier dungeons in the future. So we have talked about the choices of unique items. We're using the Lidless Wall, the new ring which auto-casts spells, the Overpower Amulet, and also Flicker Step. Together with the Soulbrand Chest and also the Blood Moon Breaches, we were able to achieve a much higher overpower damage and also lots of higher critical chance and also critical damage. Now the other choices of the legendary is that we'll be converting Bone Storm into additional barrier. We'll be providing ourselves with additional critical chance and also critical damage with Corpse Tendril, which is going to be very good. We'll also be having additional Blood Lance coming from the Blood Orbs. And finally, by consuming Blood Orbs, we'll be having up to 20 extra essence because of that. Now because we're going with a Blood Necromancer build, we'll be focusing on overpower and also maximum HP. And if you are feeling short on your resistance, you can change the sockets of the accessories accordingly. Most of the time, the Blood Necromancer is pretty straightforward with the choices of the vampiric powers, so I don't think I need to go into much. In terms of the skills, it's very straightforward as well. One thing to highlight is that we'll be consuming more corpses, and this gives up to 6 essence, and with high essence multiplier, this can be even higher per corpses. So we'll be having 3 points over here, and you can see 3 points over here for the Heal Flash. Now in terms of the Paragon, it is also quite straightforward, and because it's available on the builder's guide, I don't think I go into too much details. And one thing I do want to highlight is you want to get as much overpower as you can on your on your glyphs, and while doing so, we're also going with critical strike and also critical damage, simply because we'll be casting Corpse Tendril, and Corpse Potential gives you a tremendous amount of critical chance and also more critical damage. Now coming back to the replays. So during this testing replay, we're testing the durability and also the resistance and also damage for this build in the high tier dungeons. And during the recording, because we had one extra player, you can see that the monster's HP is increased by 100%. So you might seem that we're not doing a lot of damage, but we're actually facing monsters with a lot more HP. In terms of the build, you want to notice that you can be drinking potions to gain additional barrier. And while having additional barrier, you'll be taking less damage and also having higher lucky hit chance. Lucky hit chance can provide you to summon additional bone storm. And by dashing to enemies, you'll be reducing the cooldowns of your bone storm. The build is very versatile, but there is only one downside, is that sometimes you can be one-shotted. Let me show you guys over here. So notice here, if you are not protecting yourself by your bone storm, or if you're not having additional barrier, and during the off chance that you came out of your blood mist, you can be one-shotted or killed quickly. Now during this dungeon, the poison was quite high with the tier 100, and there were once or twice, because we were a little careless during the testing, you can see our character dying over here. So yes, I wanted to show you guys the possible mistakes and also the ways of adjusting it. One of the ways you want to be doing is, you want to be casting Decryptify onto enemies, because this will allow you to have increased overpower damage and also slows the enemy. This will also provide you with additional damage because they are controlled, and then by casting your Bone Storm, you can be doing a lot more damage because of this, and you'll also be reducing your cooldowns. So the build is built in terms of a melee mage, but you can also be playing as a range mage as well. Really depends on the difficulty and how high you want to push for the build. Currently, you can play tier 100 without any problems. Now, because we're auto-casting Corpse Potential and also Corpse Explosion, you can also be casting those two spells manually. One of the biggest focus of the build is to focus on your Bone Storm. This will be the biggest source of additional damage and also a source of additional barriers. And because you can be dashing to enemies, you can be reducing your Bone Storms by a lot. Now, most of the time, the rotation of the spell is pretty easy. And over here, we have a small game loop over here. So coming back to the replays, I'll quickly go through the game loop with you guys. So you'll be casting Decryptify onto enemies before you engage them. And after that, you can be getting enemies up with any of your corpse skills. Or you can be casting your Bone Storm. If your Bone Storm is on cooldown, you can be dashing into enemies. And then if you find yourself lack of corpses or want to reduce damage, you can be casting the Blood Mist. The build itself is very durable and deals tons of damage. And you get to see a lot of nice damage numbers flicking on the screen, which can get a little overwhelming. But it's very satisfying and they do feel very powerful. Now, because this is one of the first testing for the Blood Mage I'm building, we'll be updating this one for the futures for the bosses and also for the high tier content with the higher difficulties of the Nightmare Dungeons when December comes out. So I'll be preparing some Blood Mage build and also some high-end build for you guys for the Necromancers very soon. So now coming over to our full replay. This is a replay dungeon with tier 100 with one additional friend. So the dungeon itself is 100% additional HP because of this. So you might be seeing us dying a little bit because we're testing the build to see what extent you can push it, and we're not optimizing the skills yet during this recording. In the future, with updated Blood Mage build, we'll be adjusting for different bosses and also different content in the game.
I'm not ready yet. more time. I'm not ready yet. I need more time. My bags are full. Thank you.
If you guys haven't subscribed, it is a really good time to do so, because I'll be covering tons of Diablo 4 related topics and also videos and also guides. We'll be looking to the top meta builds, non-meta builds, leveling up, and also Paragon tricks. We're also looking to the latest events and also official updates and also changes to different characters and also different builds in the game. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and also turn the notification on, because a lot of you who are watching the videos have not subscribed. You can see 80% of the viewers who are watching our videos have not subscribed, so make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for the latest update for Diablo 4.